Yeah, so with this 5th anniversary, we thought it'd be kind of fun to we went kind of back through all the archives and the code and everything, and we're like, how did this all come about? We just wanted to kind of revisit the origins, and I think there's a few stories that haven't been told. There's a few funny twists and turns as we went ahead and did it. So yeah, I think we'll just dive into that, and then there'll be time for the questions and whatever else afterwards. So let's get into the Meebits origins. Just making sure everything's working. Okay, it starts with a game that Matt and I made, a mobile game called Road Trip. And it was a really simple kind of endless driver game where you're kind of dodging traffic. But we really specifically leaned on, I'll just jump to this slide. We leaned on like the collisions. We used a real physics engine. So you're driving along, everything's fine, but if you get into an accident, then the cars really go nuts and pile up in kind of a realistic way. Like, gas truck explodes and everything. And we were targeting kind of young kids where that would be really fun, for things to get crazy after you crash, and it was all done with voxels, as you can see. That was our first that was because we wanted to do 3D graphics, but we weren't 3D designers or anything. And then when we kind of got into the voxel stuff, we're like, oh, this really works because we're already kind of pixel artist people.
Before you switch it to, you just see that little cop there in the middle.
Just standing there?
A little bit of, you're going to see a few more of them, but it's a little bit of a proto-Meebit.
Yeah.
Few less voxels, but yeah.
I'm actually going to back up a few slides. I'm just kind of moving around here. But yeah, so this is Magica Voxel. I'm not sure if any of you have used this software. It's free software, and it's just kind of one of these. There's a few pieces of software that I just have absolute love for, and this is one of them. Such a nice editor. And yes, so kind of welcoming. It also does really nice renders of.
It's about like one genius in Japan, basically.
Yeah, right. There's just this one guy who just wrote all the software, and he's kind of moved on to other kind of more advanced 3D graphic stuff now. But this piece of software is just fantastic, and yeah, it was always like free and worked really well. And so that was during the Meebits project. That was just our home, just editing stuff in Magica. Yeah, this is what the game looks like when you haven't crashed, but who cares about that? This is what it looks like when you are crashed.
It's really a little horrifying because it's very arcadey. It's not physical at all until you crash, and then it's just horrifying because stuff really goes wrong.
And yeah, we had, this is just a little aside, we made little paper cutouts of some of the cars and stuff. And but then as part of the project, we started off with just cars, but then we kind of added some people in just because it was fun, to have, and they're almost like just little bowling pins that get knocked down a little bit here and there. Like
they get, as soon as there's a collision, they all start getting out of their cars, which is onto the highway as cars continue to drive into the seat. So,
unfortunately, we don't have any video because there's just a technical problem that's preventing. We had a little bit of video showing some of this stuff, but you can look up Road Trip by Larva Labs. You can find it all. But the one of the best ones is those two goofs in the limo. They of course immediately go flying as soon as they get into an accident. The garbage man hanging off the back of the garbage truck. The two elderly people getting out of the city bus. So yeah, so it was. I mean, that game wasn't a hit, but it was a hit with a few young people in our lives. So that was fun. That some people really. But you can see at the bottom there. Yeah, like Matt said, almost like a little proto-Meebit. Although we had to keep them really simple to keep them in scale with the cars, are just these little people we made. But we did really enjoy doing that, and that kind of stuck in our minds that it's like, oh, these little 3D characters are really fun to make. We had also worked for a little while, and I should say this game came out in 2017, and another project of ours came out that year too. And actually this was the thing we did right before CryptoPunks.
Is that right? Oh.
Yeah, we worked on it though, on and off, starting I think in 2015 maybe. Mm. But when I looked at all the dates, we had our launch party for this game just with a bunch of friends and family who had kids and everything. And that was only really like about a month and a half before we launched CryptoPunks. So yeah. But we were also kind of working on a game that was, I don't know if you ever played the game Crossy Road, which is like and so we were kind of doing almost like, it was sort of trying to be like a cross between Crossy Road and Zelda, like basically Crossy Road, but then you're kind of fighting a little bit and gearing up and everything. it's kind of fun even, but so that was just a little more voxel stuff that we were doing before. Yeah, and then of course Punks came out, and even back then, even before things went crazy, that was successful insofar as people were really into it. We really enjoyed it. That was validating. It really, obviously, it changed what we wanted to work on and how we wanted to work on it. And so really even though we didn't work on Meebits right away, we immediately started thinking about, we were already doing this voxel stuff. And then it's like, would it be possible to generate CryptoPunk-like things with all these different traits combining, but to do that in 3D? And so it was an idea that I think we had, but didn't jump on right away.
Yeah.
These are some really early voxel. I don't even know what these were for. I think the first one was, also like some little game character. The second one is maybe the closest thing to like the first protomeebs, because
I feel like you sent that to me and we're like, I think this is kind of what I'm doing. And you're like, yeah, all right, that's starting to work, yeah.
And I think crucially, not that this guy looks good or looks like a Meebit really, but it's more like, I think maybe that hat was put on programmatically. It was the first time we started to combine models a little bit. Like it's like, oh, can we composite these things?
I like how the guy on the left is definitely sad.
Yeah.
Poor life choices.
Yeah.
That's nice.
And then what's weird is like our next prototypes are almost like finished Meebits in a way. Like it's kind of crazy how these designs are basically in the final set, even though we're still really early here. Like we're still exploring just some of the stuff we did. We just kept it, and the shapes aren't quite the same. Obviously, these guys have noses. But which is like, that's not right. And
they had noses for a while, and I remember that felt like, of course they have noses. They have noses.
Yeah.
I feel like there's some dimensional differences here too. We were trying to decide how thick they should be.
Yeah.
And if you remember back from the road trip, guys, those were quite thick. Like they were they were just bowling pins. They got hit by cars, so who cares? So they were had quite a robust, barrel chest, and so I think they got we were trying different thicknesses here.
And and there's what we've settled on, which is kind of more the guy on the left here. Is pretty thin actually, where really the head really kind of sticks out. Like focus on the head, but then you can still see the clothes and everything. Whereas on the right, that's a little more like barrel chest, a little more thickness there. And these ones, this was another exercise before we really got into it, where we were just. We were getting into the streetwear stuff a bit, and we were looking at pictures, like streetwear photos from magazines and stuff, and just trying to make them as voxels. Kind of too bad. Like I like kind of that orange hair is kind of cool actually, but so these were just sort of one-offs.
Their noses are gone.
yeah. No noses here, surprisingly, but still, this is before we made any real decisions on that. I don't think. And they, so these are just we're just trying to recreate an entire specific sort of outfit that someone was wearing in a photo, with sort of mixed success. If not a lot of those, we were realizing it's like, most things have too much detail to capture and still have it be voxely. We didn't want it to be. There's always that trade-off. You want the minimum amount of detail so you can still capture everything and everything's translates. But if you have too much detail, then it loses like that really like blocky, voxely, and then now it's like almost like you're telling too much, and rather than the brain filling in what that looks like, you're actually just seeing too much contour, too much detail. Now it seems like these are two more where it's like, getting really close. Like this is just starting to look like Meebits now. And but then came the Snouts era. This is like, for some reason we put these pig snouts on and we're like, this is it. We loved it. And for a really long time, for most of the actual technical work of the project, it was Snout, and our code name for the whole project was Snouts.
And I think that's usually how, we don't usually have any trouble naming things. Like we just accidentally name something and use it long enough such that we get used to it. And so we were really used to calling it Snouts. And it's the pig project, it's like the Voxel pig project. And so that, you'll see as we go along here, but for a while it was like Snouts.
Yeah. And so this is when, and you can see now, this is when we have our compositing working in a simple way, so that swapping the shirts, and some of them have hats and everything. So we were starting to get all the tech going, and And weirdly, one of the first things that this really surprised me going back through things. One of the first things we did was the glitch pig, which is such a strange thing to do early. And I think there was a friend of ours who had said back after CryptoPunks, he's like, I wish there was one character who just had something weird about it, but it wasn't even in the traits or anything. You know, like there was no indication that there was something wrong or different about it, but then it just had like a glitch, you know. And so I guess I don't know, but I had no idea. I thought we had added that at the 9th, 11th hour, but that was really early. And then just this album cover on the right, my uncle was in a prog rock band in Canada in the 70s, and that was their first album cover.
I wish you would included a picture of your uncle, because he looks a little bit like you, and the outfit he's wearing, if you can imagine a 70s prog rock Canadian band.
Yeah.
It's something for sure.
Yeah, it looks like me, like, really dressing crazy, yeah. And he's a painter as well. He actually painted that album cover, which is kind of funny, yeah. Also, like the next image in our archive was actually the first time we started doing patterns. So that's just like some of you have like these prints of the camo patterns that we made for Marfa, but this is the original one that like the first time we ran the algorithm, and then the idea being that you have this huge block of camo pattern that also goes right inside too. Like you can peel off layers of it, a big 3D chunk of camo, and then you just apply whatever voxels need camo. Just get those voxels applied to them, and that's what makes it unique every time. Is you generate a new block for every Meebit. So there's the that's the first application of a pattern to the pants and to the hat there. This is our first shot at the skeleton. Not the best yet, and of course still got a snout. So yeah, like almost like a little pig skeleton. But yeah, that was just a very early version. Here's a trait that probably would have continued if we'd kept with the snouts, the little nose ring, yeah. And then here's some of these traits did make it. There's like the mohawk and the shades and stuff.
And then here's to mention on the topic of the on the skeleton. I don't know if we have more on it later, but the idea originally was like the skeleton was going to be in every Meebit, so you could like peel off the outer layers, and there would be the skeleton in there. It just kind of got a little too complicated. Yeah, it was a little too hard.
We kind of tried to do that too late, and it was starting to risk the project where we were getting artifacts where it's like, oh, it's screwing up certain things. Some of the T poses, you could like see bones when they open their arms up and everything. It's like. But it wasn't even going to just be the skeleton. We were going to have the full, like the dissected in there, you know. So you start peeling off layers, and you can find like, you know, lungs and hearts and everything in there. But yeah, that was just proving to be kind of too risky to a project that was almost done, basically. There's a cigarette, which would have been kind of fun. But once we eventually got rid of the nose, the cigarette looked weird, just kind of floating in the middle of nowhere. Also, I think there is, we'll see this as we go through, but we had a lot of tension. Like we couldn't really decide like how much CryptoPunk trait stuff should be in this. You know, we didn't want there to be that much. You know, it was fun to still reference CryptoPunks in fun ways. Like it was cool that they had a CryptoPunk T-shirt and an Autoglyph T-shirt. It's like, oh, it's like they're fans of those projects. But rather than just, you know, directly having traits. But then we also, as you know, we caved in on a few where it's like, it's just, you know, like I think we made the 3D glasses at some point. It's like, it just looks good. We got to have it in there.
Surprisingly late though, too. I think we were like, we won't do it. No cigarette, no 3D glasses. And then late, like, that looks pretty good though. Like, yeah.
So I think I'm so happy we didn't, go, you know, kind of load it up with all the CryptoPunks traits. But this was one of the reasons we didn't stick with the cigarette. Some hats that. A lot of these are not final yet, as you can see. Another pattern, the plaid pattern. And then we kind of, then we were like, wait a minute. Is this Snouts thing a good idea? You know, like we're trying to work on the female ones. Like, I don't like this, you know, so.
I feel like we had also shown it to a couple, like maybe two people early on, and we were like, yeah, it's called Snouts, it's all pigs. And there was like a little bit of like a pause, and they were like, all pigs? And they're like, you know, like, yeah.
And what's funny is I kind of expected, once again, like we had this sort of chronological archive of all the screenshots we were taking, all the, you know, and when I saw this, I'm like, oh, the next slide is going to be, the next image is going to be no snouts. No, we have like weeks to go before we actually drop the snout.
Yeah.
Surprisingly, yeah, like I couldn't believe we stuck with it. But yeah, so here's like the hoodie showed up, and there was another one. It's like, oh, we got to have a hoodie because we were also trying to do kind of streetwear clothes and everything. So it's like the hoodie belongs, has to be there. And yeah, it's starting to get a little bit of graphic design, kind of t-shirts going. This was like, we really wanted to do the punk shirt, but we were originally trying to almost like change. We were like, oh, maybe the shirts will have like a finer amount of detail instead of matching like the actual voxel thing, but that really bothered us. And then once we figured out, oh, let's just blow up the zombie face and make it like a huge zombie t-shirt.
This is actually a really good example of what you were saying earlier, where that's just too much detail for the world of the Meebit. It sucks on the left and it's awesome on the right. Like you have to get that level of like detail right, such that it, and especially once it's like partially covered by like an overshirt and stuff, it like becomes so awesome.
Becomes kind of real, yeah. It makes it real within that world rather than you kind of break out of that world to like do a detailed shirt. Just, yeah, that didn't feel right to us, yeah. Yeah, this is now getting to these graphic design shirts. Those are always really fun to work on. And then, yeah, the headphone, the wild hair. That's still an early version of the wild hair where it's kind of got wing. It's kind of not quite right, the shape of it yet.
Symmetrical too.
Yeah, a little too symmetrical, a little bit like squared off still, because it kind of started with a big block that we were cutting away at and stuff. So, not a final version yet, but then we got into we were thinking about rare types. So then there's like another version of the skeleton. And the elephant, basically that's kind of the final version of the elephant. And then a prototype robot. I think we got rid of that antenna on the top of the robot.
Oh, it's a pig robot too.
Big robot, of course, yeah. Yeah, the skeleton with the jersey. I like how you can see the ribs when they're wearing the jersey. That's always good. And then, yeah, some more female traits. I think some of these you've seen before, but yeah, there's the cowboy hat that ended up being on the cutting room floor. There's like a matte Meebit, the first shot at a Meebit that looks like matte a little bit.
Yeah, and I think neither of us could remember like that shirt, right? Like.
Yeah, I have no recollection where that shirt came from. It might have been one of those ones that was based off of, it's kind of like a rough drawing. It might have come from one of these photos that we were, early in our testing, we were, like I said, we were using photos and just trying to recreate it to get a sense of what it looked like. But that's the last, I think, time that shirt shows up. We must have cut it shortly after. Oh yeah, the tie-dye pattern was kind of a fun one to work on. And then, yeah, in parallel, we don't have a lot of screenshots really, but in the parallel, the website was being worked on, and especially how it was going to look. And so if you remember our version of the website, you had this kind of, the full Meebit, and then these three different zoom-ins. So you could see like the head, the torso, and then like focus on the footwear. We hadn't even really done much footwear yet, but we knew we were going to eventually do a bunch of sneakers and all that kind of stuff. All right, yeah, so this is when we start thinking about getting rid of the snout, finally. And so we had like this button nose was the first stop on the path.
It's so much worse.
Yeah.
The previous nose with the single voxel is like definitely better than this.
Yes, yeah. I don't know why this was funny to see in there, yeah. And then this, in general, this screenshot where it's 5 across and 5 deep, but they're offset every second row. I feel like that was like our life for months, like because the way our software worked was you could just generate 25 at a time, but you could also put a filter on, so you could say like I just want elephants or like elephants with headphones, and then you would just make them, and then we would just kind of make a set of 25, look at them. That was sort of the right number to be able to see them all easily. We'd load them back up into Magica Voxel once we generated them. And we'd render them, or we would just look at them and then fix some stuff, make them again, fix it, make it again. And I just remember like just basically becoming obsessed where like I'd be eating breakfast and just like making another batch of 25, making another batch, And so a lot of the screenshots we have are individual ones, but then you see a lot of these screenshots too where it's these sets of 25. Like this next one's another set. And so yeah, now we finally dropped the nose. But what actually, for a little brief window, we didn't have a pig at all anymore. You know what I mean? Like we just like, oh, forget the pigs. And then a little while later, let's have the pig the same, let's get the pig and the elephant as rare types. And then the pig, because we had already made a bunch of pig like we had the Snouts logo kind of and everything. It's like, well, we can make them kind of the uncommon rather than like, rare. They can be
and
kind
that
of
I think came from another like sort of thing, a reaction to CryptoPunks where like we go from common like to zombies, which are pretty rare already, and people were like sort of missing that uncommon middle ground. And so then we're like, oh, I think like pigs can be that kind of. And we already had so many like pig specific things. We're like, oh, the pigs are the cool ones, like they have their own little world, clothing, style, all that kind of thing. So
yeah, right. They have their own specific sort of, like they have a special jersey that's just theirs and everything.
Look at the cardigan on the right too. Did that get cut?
I think it's in there, but maybe not exactly that version.
It's a little different than that, right?
Yep. This one, I don't know where, like, the cow Meebit. Then we're like, okay, too many animals. Like, two's enough,
Also,
like,
I think we were like, we're going to have to put an udder on that, right? And then, yeah, you know what? No cow. Forget it.
Yeah. So, the good old cow Meebit, we made it, and then we immediately said, forget it. But it's cute. It's just not, it didn't need to be there. And then we worked on the Dissected. I got, once again, a little bit earlier than I thought. We were working on the Dissected, and there was a few versions. Didn't really have it right. Didn't really like how it looked. Liked the idea of it. It was kind of based on things like Cause and Bear Bricks. They have like their kind of invisible, see-through versions of their collectible stuff. So we thought it'd be cool to do a Meebit version of that. And but yeah, that one. This probably, no surprise. This probably took the longest of all the types to get right. And we had problems with like rendering it too. This is when we were trying to kind of figure out actual rendering. And the one on the right is, I think, pretty close to final rendering. Not exactly. This is all happening during the pandemic too. And Matt and I are hockey fans and Maple Leafs, like long-suffering Maple Leafs fans. So I remember one time when the Leafs were just like losing, we just made a Snoutz Maple Leaf jersey just for ourselves. Just like that was no intention of putting that out, but just because he couldn't go out or anything. I think I just watched like I never used to watch like an entire season of hockey, but I did that year, And then this is now we're kind of jumping to the point now where we're getting a lot closer now, and so this is once again just make 25. Look for problems, look for ones that aren't that good, look for color schemes that don't work. There's a lot of that. There's a whole rule system of excluded color combinations. There was rules for putting colors together. Sometimes someone can be kind of completely matching, like, oh, everything is like purple, like top to bottom. Or there's like two colors that are kind of complementary, or they've gone pretty wild with like 3 or 4 colors. There was different rules for combining color schemes and patterns and everything. So this was just like iterating and testing that. We realized we needed kind of some wilder stuff, like a little bit more kind of over the top wild stuff. So some of these hairstyles were like that. It was fun to do. All these were algorithms. We always found it was easier to write an algorithm than to actually like get in and edit, And so even the rainbow hair and stuff like that are all generated by software. The tie-dye spiral, it is just like actually like a little mathematical spiral that generates that and everything. And we finally, this is where we caved in and did the 3D glasses, because we just like, they just belong in there. They look fun.
I mean, part of why the 3D glasses were in the punks is just because they do so well in pixel, and it was the same thing for the voxels too. They just look great, So, like, yeah, all right.
This is final robot and skeleton too, which we were really happy with. Got some shirtless guys going. That was very late that we added that. Yeah,
surprisingly late. Look at that dude on the right. It is. We were talking earlier that it is funny. Like we were generating these Meebits, and then there's a story immediately. Like that guy on the right, it's like he's got something going on. Like he's retired a little too early. He's getting.
The reason these screenshots are off center is because we were putting little talk bubbles.
Is that right?
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
I couldn't find any because I think we were just sending it to each other in chat.
Yeah.
Like auto deleting after a while, just like our personal chat. But we kept tacking on little talk bubbles to each other because these were these two like cool kind of burnout Meebit guys that were just kind of fun to speak in their voice. And then another relatively late feature were the generative tattoos, which was another really kind of fun little mini project within a project to come up with these like almost little autoglyphy algorithms to generate these tattoos. And we ended up making the female ones just kind of have a sleeve, and then the other ones have symmetric on each arm.
I like the flat top too.
That was another relatively late breaking.
Yeah.
Late breaking style there. Then we extended the tattoos to the pigs and the elephants, and actually the visitor have their own tattoo style, but the visitor didn't exist yet. There's another scrapped trait, the biker hat, which also looked a bit like a chauffeur hat. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, here's a little technical interlude. Yeah, what does it look like, an actual trait? So this is how we would work on them. We had this sort of gray generic Meebit body, and then we had different ones, like there's a female Meebit body, and there was other all the pig, we had all of them. And then we would kind of draw the trait on, and that sort of like generic kind of light blue, that was sort of one of the generic colors we had that would then be swapped in for like a pattern or a color. And there was different rules. Like, so for this headphones, we would specify which colors or patterns were allowed to replace that generic color. But then obviously the gray sort of like band there that connects up to the cups, that's not a generic color. That color is always gray. And then these magenta voxels, those were deletion voxels. So what that meant was when you were compositing, when you added the headphones on, you had to delete anything that was there. Because some of they had big hairstyles, it was possible for there to be voxels that would kind of stick out unnaturally on the headphones. And so this was stuff that was all kind of trial by error. This is like a typical trait that has like generic voxels, specific color voxels, and then these deletion voxels. And then when you composited everything together and applied all those rules, then it came together properly. And so it was a lot. I think at a previous talk we said this is all a lot more complicated than CryptoPunks, and this is just a little window into that.
I think when we were showing those 25, which is our standard kind of quick rendering thing, and then at a certain point we were like, I think we're good. We have not seen problems, so I think we're done. So then we generated a 20,000 set, and then we went through every one of them to look for problems, and then we would find a problem. And so then we fixed that problem, but the combinations are nearly infinite. So then, it turns out that the final Meebits were the 5th version of that, where we found a problem 4 previous times that, was like, oh no, one combination of assets didn't work, so we, all right, fix it, regenerate, re-render, so yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And so all these assets required all this sort of kind of fairly custom sort of, and then there was a lot of rules in the code too about how to put everything together and what order, and then there was some exceptions like, the elephant trunk, you got to deal with that could get in the way of things, that kind of stuff. Okay, then we finally, this is another thing where we were like, I don't know, CryptoPunk alien, are we going to have an alien, and maybe it doesn't feel right. But we made one. It's always the case. Then we made one and we loved it. So then it's like, now what do we do? And you can see this is even the color is very similar. So we kind of sat on it for a while. We made it, but we didn't. And I think even that tattoo style is not the right tattoo style for the visitor. So we made it, but we sat on it for a while. And then here's a batch of 25. Where we were like, I like the long arms. I like the big eyes and everything. Might have to do something with this. But we didn't right away. I noticed that in all our larger generations, there was no visitors. We weren't convinced yet. Here's just some more technical work on the T poses. So we made it so that there was a bit of algorithmic stuff, so you could have the arms out. And the crucial thing with this is that's the shape you need to have them in order to rig them for video games or other 3D programs. And so that's what allowed them to move and to be portable into different environments, which was really cool. The first time we had that one Meebit dancing, we were like, this is awesome, yeah. And then, this is just kind of, now we're in kind of almost like the final stretch here. This is some of the traits we added near the end, the little kind of, a lot of overshirt type stuff, and the Hawaiian shirt, the big beard. Yeah, a few more. There's the glyph shirt. That was a pretty late entry. CGA shirt. Just getting a little more variety in the clothing.
CGA shirt.
Yeah, CGA. CGA being a reference to 1980s graphics standard.
Yep, everyone likes that. The kids especially.
Yeah, this was isometric rendering, so this is kind of a fun thing where it's like, oh, Meebits are now back to pixel art, and so there's, they look kind of flat because of the isometric is sort of like 3D rendering without any perspective, but you can do it in a very pixel perfect way, and so this was like the first relatively manual rendering of this, and we eventually did the algorithmic version where we could convert all the Meebits to isometric, which is always kind of just a fun. It's fun to make these things, and then the plots that have been made are another example. It's just fun to have like other ways of looking at them, other ways of experiencing them, and because Meebits are 3D, there's just such a kind of an endless amount of things you can do with them. This is our now we're working on like little pixel fonts for the jerseys, so we can substitute in different numbers, and each jersey type has its own little font. And then of course the pig has their own, which is like an old school like LCD pixel font from so kind of a retro 80s sort of vibe on that jersey. And then there's a good look at the skeleton showing its ribs, which has always been a favorite thing. And then I don't remember exactly when we decided to do this. But it was right around when we were working on the jerseys where we did we limited the number of, we kind of algorithmically limited the set to only have 64 pigs with jersey. And then that's when we made the puzzle out of that. So 64 numbers, you can kind of turn that into a private key, make a wallet out of it. And then this became like the puzzle. So when we did what was it called? The
Grails.
Grails, that's right.
Proof collective Grails.
The proof collective Grails. We hit a little clue in that sort of hinted that there was something going on with the pig numbers, basically is what the clue said. And then eventually some guys figured out, that was really just like such a fun thing to like sneak a little puzzle in.
And it had been in there for how long at that point? It was like a year?
Yeah, a little over a year.
Over a year, yeah.
And so we kind of knew that. We're like, let's put this puzzle in, and then like it's so obscure, no one's gonna figure it out. We thought maybe people will look at the distribution and see that there's something going on weird with the pigs with jerseys. But then we just put that little clue in, and that was enough to get people started, and then they eventually solved it. And then that's the pig that they won. That once they took over the wallet, because they were basically once you solve it, you have the private key to the wallet. So then you just had that pig, which was pretty fun. And then here's where we finally we're like, okay, we can do, we're gonna have the visitor, not alien, but visitor, and it's gonna have green skin.
Yeah, it's different.
And then we felt good about it, and it's still. Yeah, I love their long arms and everything. It really, I think it's fun to see them within the group, being pretty rare and just sort of standing out amongst the group. So, yeah, that was cool. This was one of the last traits we did, the Snouts hoodie, which, I've seen one here today. It's cool to see it IRL. And then we did the rare sneakers. That was all pretty close to the end. There's the flamingo shirt too. And another late thing we did was the old Meebits. Yeah. That is some foresight. Like right around now is when we need to go collecting. Matt and I need to go.
One day we'll need these.
Yeah, exactly.
Like that day was like a year later.
Yeah. And then once, as Matt said, we were doing the first set, second. Eventually, we had the fifth set was like the final one, and then that's where we got our kind of a group shot. We sort of took 8 of our favorites basically from that, and that became the group shot that was at the top of the webpage header. And there's a few more things that might be a little. I think we did that group shot, but we were also we were still iterating on a few traits that we just wanted to improve them. So like there was this was like kind of the two on the right there were the work on the way to the little Meebit shirt, which was kind of one of my That was one of my favorite little traits on the female ones. Yeah, that middle image is another one that was on the website. But we were kind of doing some final refinement to a lot of the female ones. And then, we did a final version of the glitch pig. Even though we had that sitting around for a long time, we didn't sort of dress it up until the very end, like figure out, because that one was so custom, it's like, well, we just kind of get to pick all the traits for that one, you know. And then this is the final form of the Dissected, without the glass on it. That was kind of, the way we rendered it was kind of 2 steps, I think, where that one went out and then we did it in Blender, you know.
And the colors of the organs changed a bunch and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And then, this was to render 20,000 things. Like, we love Magic of Voxel, but there was no way to script it or anything. So we had to, it was kind of painful. We were so used to the Magic of Voxel rendering, and then we had to switch and try to recreate that in Blender. We actually got someone to help us who was good at Blender and knew how to do the scripting and stuff, so we got a little help here. But it was fun when we could all of a sudden render huge amounts of them that we hadn't done that before, to have these like big group shots. Here's another one. And then we scripted up, generating all the final renders. Like I said, we have so little screenshots of this, but then in the middle of this, we were also writing a complete like a trade interface.
Yeah, and the smart contract was one of the more complicated smart contracts we ever written, and we were auditing that and working on the whole like trading multiple Meebits plus ETH on either side, like all this kind of stuff. It was very, very challenging. In addition to like reviewing the Meebits, there was a whole other process. It wasn't really a 2-person job, is what I'll say. It got a little onerous.
Yeah, we were kind of losing our minds by the end, because you're right. You have to check context switch between like, is this contract safe? To like, does this trading interface make sense? And then like, does this like baseball cap look cool? Like, it was definitely very intense at the end. But there's something fun about working on every aspect of it too, though.
And our goal, I think we've said it before, but our goal was like, the thing we were missing in NFTs was trading, which was something that when we were kids, when we were collecting stuff, you weren't buying stuff from your friends. You were doing a lot of trading. You'd buy from the store and you'd trade with your friends. So we thought that would just be a fun thing to have, in addition to just buying and selling, to be able to just, and Sergio did like such a fun thing with your like the Meebit upgrade program, where you like propose trades to the all the Meebits that the Meebco owned and stuff, and you could be like, I want to get this Meeb. Okay, we'll do that deal for you. So that was a little bit in the spirit of that, I think.
Yep. So I think that's it for like the history and everything. We'll just do, and now we'll just kind of. Yeah, I mean, there was no like, I don't really have a final slide for like, and then it's out. Other than maybe like this, we arrived at sort of. This sort of like we're very happy with the result. Like it was one of those things where I feel like our eyes had lost the ability to discern. That's when we're like, okay, we're done. Like it was just, there was so much iteration at the end and like adjustment and everything. But eventually we were like, okay, I think this is it. Like we're here. And but even just in this process, it was really fun to go back and see and almost be like reminded. Like we kind of fall in love with them again. And I think most, it was funny to look back and say, did we drop stuff we shouldn't have, or did we? And I actually am fine with everything. Everything that was on the cutting room floor was there for a reason, I think.
Pig nose ring. That's probably
pig nose ring would have been fun. Yeah, if a few pigs had a nose ring, that's pretty cool. Yeah. But yeah, just a few more items here. This was a kind of our post-launch stuff where we did we did a version that was 3D printable, and obviously there's a bunch of those around here today. They're really cool, 3D printed. We eventually did, we did the isometric. Yeah, I just love this photo. This is gratuitous. We don't need this photo, but it was just, I just like the little pig Meebit standing in Gowanus in Brooklyn. Just looks so fun with all the graffiti behind him and everything. Yeah. But anyway, so now to jump to today, we have these Meebit plots. And for those of you who ordered them, I'm excited for you to see them. Brie Pettis, who's sitting here, runs the company that makes the best plotters money can buy, and we use his plotters. But because this was a big job, these take a long time to plot, and a lot were ordered. Brie was good enough to actually run, because he has a lot of plotters, because he runs the company. He did all this plotting for us and ran the plotters, and they look really cool. And this was a fun project to try to, okay, we're going to convert these back to line-drawn black and white images, and it was, we're really happy with how it worked out. Like, yeah, this skeleton one in particular is just really crazy looking and cool. But Sergio's looks really cool too. In fact, we can zoom in on Sergio's a little bit, and we'll just tell you a little nerdy technical detail. So, yeah, so there's obviously this hatching algorithm for shading. Like, it's called hatching, when you use a bunch of lines to sort of simulate like a gray color, and but we were sort of like, it'd be nice to have some little indication of color. Like, obviously we can't do much because it's black and white, but so we converted it to this color space called YUV, and basically Y is like the black and white, that's that vertical bar, and then U and V are this sort of scale of color where like you have kind of green at the bottom left, and then it turns more and more red and blue and purple and everything. And so what we did was anything where the U value is greater than 0, so in other words, it's more blue than it is green, then we use cross hatching, and anything where it's on the other side, we just use single hatching. And just, it's not, it doesn't matter that much, except you can see it really work well for the 3D glasses, where you can kind of tell, even though they're basically the same value, you can tell that one of them's blue and one of them's not, kind of. And so it just kind of creates a little, and you see it in a lot of the clothing too, where there'll just be some cross hatching in there. And I think it works to just sort of set the differentiation. And even if you don't print them, like the actual files are still cool, they look cool on their own, or even if you just print them on a printer, they still look cool. Yeah, one was generated for each Meeb. And yeah, and that's really, only my last slide is just the little shot from from Marfa here. Of our two Meebs, Sergio and a Dissected in the back there. But for those of you who weren't at Marfa, that was really amazing to see. How many was it? Like 110 Meebs all together in one display, and it was really cool. So, anything else to add, or are we in question?
No, we have time for questions, or are there even?
Yeah,
questions,
yeah.